Welcome to the Weird Works podcast. I'm Dr. Kristy, your host. Join us for conversations about alternative and sometimes controversial healthcare topics. This podcast will provide the evidence that you need in order to make informed decisions about your health, to empower you with the facts that you need to advocate for your health, and to encourage you that there is hope your body heals. Join us from experts from all things weird, as well as the testimonies of people with stories of radical healing who were once told that perhaps their condition was a death sentence, that they would just need to live with it, or that drugs and invasive surgery were the only answer. Let's get into agreement that if there is something natural and non-invasive that could be helpful, that it could be your first option rather than your last resort. Hello, and welcome to the Weird Works podcast. Today I'm going to share a live patient appointment interpretation of one of our new functional labs, the Dutch Plus. Our patient consented to us sharing her consultation with me so that you can get a taste for the amount of detail this test gives us as compared to traditional blood labs for hormone analysis. The Dutch Plus not only shows us your total hormone levels, but more importantly what your body is doing with them and how it's breaking them down. So Christina ordered the Dutch Plus to try to gain some insight into causes of her inflammation and pain from fibromyalgia, which she was previously diagnosed with by her medical doctor. But she was also experiencing perimenopausal symptoms of interrupted sleep, fatigue, brain fog, and headaches. And as Christina will mention in this consult, she was hopeful that the results from this test would help her prepare for menopause so that she could have as healthy of an outcome as possible and a healthy, comfortable transition. And also because she wanted to lower her risks for postmenopausal osteoporosis, diabetes, and heart disease. So if any of you have been down this path, those are the conditions that the medical profession will sort of hang over a woman's head and use to kind of fear them into using hormone replacement therapy. So, without further ado, here's my appointment with Christina. Are you tired of going from diet to diet to come up short and feel worse than you did when you started? Or are you just lost with all the mixed messaging out there today and not sure what's best for you and your lifestyle? Maybe you were told that you had to live with your symptoms and accept feeling less than your typical vibrant self. Well, I'm here to tell you the truth. As a practicing doctor of chiropractic, kinesiology, and clinical nutrition, I see people all the time that are just like you, frustrated and starting to lose hope. But I do want you to know that you do not have to give up on the you that you know you could be. There is a way to truly achieve optimal health and also to live your life. I want to share with you how, by doing some small, doable adjustments and taking on a new approach to enjoyable and non-restrictive eating, we can help you start feeling better and begin to see changes in your waistline and start releasing weight in as little as 14 days. Okay, so when you do get your Dutch test, this is the summary page on page 1. Okay. And so what it's showing you is this is just a generic little dial. And so down in the purple to the far left would be healthy hormone ranges for postmenopausal. Right. And then since you're not menopausal, this is the range between the yellow stars.
Yes, ma'am.
And so it tested your estrogen, your progesterone, and your testosterone. Okay. And then in a minute we're going to show you way more detail than just the levels. Okay, cool. But these dials are representative of what your serum levels would be. And so serum is like what blood tests are.
Yes.
So that's what most people get. Okay. And so just at a quick glance, what you can see is your estradiol dial is further below the normal, so that's low. Okay. Your progesterone is within the range, and then your testosterone is in range, but kind of on the low side, like very close to the little left side of the dial there. Okay. Now, this was taken during your luteal phase, so that's the second phase. Remember they asked you to collect between days 19 and 21.
Yes, ma'am.
And so the reason is because we want to capture what the corpus luteum does, and that if it doesn't result in pregnancy and get fertilized, the corpus luteum releases progesterone. Okay. So then you can also kind of see by the position of the dials, naturally in the luteal phase, your progesterone dial should point higher than your estrogen dial. So that's what we see there. So that
Okay.
was good.
All right.
And then the next part of the summary page was your adrenals. So you did the Dutch Plus. So we got the female hormones, your androgens, and your cortisol over 24 hours.
Okay.
So on here, your androgens are DHEA and cortisol. So DHEA is like a precursor, and I'll show you a hormone flow chart in a minute that shows you what DHEA then later turns into.
Okay.
But the way we have always thought of it in functional medicine is DHEA is kind of like your backup,
Okay.
your reserve tank
Okay.
for your cortisol.
Oh, okay.
And your cortisol is your stress hormone.
I heard that before.
So those are your reserves. And so what you can see is that's just on the very tip of normal range. So even though it's within range, it is low. And this also is based on an age range. So I circled your age range, and you can see that even though it's within range on the dial, it's low for your age window.
Yeah.
Okay, so we'll come back to that in a little bit.
Sure.
This, remember you did 4 samples for the cortisol for the saliva, right?
Yes.
You collected 4 times in a 24-hour window. And so the black lines here represent the high range and the low range, and the red is you.
Okay.
And so you're within range for most of the day, and then in the afternoon it elevates a little bit outside of the range. So do you tend to feel more anxious in the midday? What are your symptoms midday? Or is that when you have that mid-afternoon slump?
Yeah. I have a mid-afternoon slump.
Okay.
Yes, ma'am.
So you probably feel good because this is a little more elevated, but once it falls off of that high point, that's your crash.
Yeah.
So we're going to tweak and adjust your protocol to kind of prevent that from happening.
Good.
So you want to do something
Thank
before
you.
the crash.
Yes, ma'am.
But it's cool to see it on the graph, right?
Yeah, it is.
There's actually a reason why you feel the way you feel.
Yeah.
And
I've
for-
had this crash midday for years.
Right?
Years.
Right. But now we can see why, and
Even
then later.
before I was married.
Oh,
I had
wow.
it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, and I was just thinking about you with like your history of the fibromyalgia and stuff. Like the whole time I was reading and analyzing this, I'm like, I think you're going to be so grateful to have the knowledge because there's reasons behind why the body's not
too many
producing
doctors
energy.
are doing what you're doing, Dr. Kristy, and I really appreciate it.
I love it. It lights me up because I'm like at home being a nerd and reading all this. I'm like,
yeah,
oh my gosh,
I'm a
she's
nerd when
gonna
it comes
see it.
to doTERRA, the science, the testing of the different oils, especially the ones. Girl, if you want to get if you like Serenity and you want to get a good night's sleep, they have a new sleep system that just came out.
Okay.
I ordered it.
Yeah.
I ordered it.
Okay.
I placed my order today. Sorry.
I like the normal Serenity, so I'm gonna have to look it up.
Yeah.
Okay, so then on the rest of the adrenal, it also looks at your free cortisol and your metabolized cortisol. And we'll have more information in this in a minute. But this was a little alert that got printed out, and it's just telling us to check your thyroid hormones because your body has more free cortisol compared to the stored or metabolized cortisol. And so the free cortisol is like the active, what your body can call on and utilize. But then you also want some in storage because your body can convert back and forth between stored and active when it needs it.
Okay.
But we have to make sure that it's able to do that readily so that when you need it, you have stores and supply.
Okay.
Okay, so with these tests, you're always going to get a page that looks like more of a chart and dials. And then you'll also have these pages that look more like a traditional layout of what you're used to seeing with blood work. So it tells you what was tested and if it was within or below range and what the numbers were.
Okay.
Me personally, I think this makes so much more sense when you look at this anyway. So I'm going to be focusing on the charts and graphs and dials.
Okay.
Okay, so we're going to read this top to bottom. So pregnenolone is like the master hormone. It's a precursor that then your progesterone and your DHEA are made out of. Okay, and then you can kind of follow this down. DHEA then makes a metabolite of DHEA, and it makes your testosterone. And then that can get broken down into different metabolites. So all these extra things on this page are things that are not in traditional blood work. That's why we do the Dutch test, because you really need to know your levels, but also what does your body do with it?
Right.
And can it like metabolize, meaning like get all the excess completely out of the body? Because buildup can be excess, and then you can have deficiency or excess symptoms.
Right.
And so when you filled out your survey that went along with this, it would have been really confusing for somebody to analyze your hormones and what they thought should be high or low, because your answers, and this wasn't right or wrong, they were true, but you answered things that could be a sign of excess or deficiency.
Okay.
So without the data behind it, we wouldn't just by a subjective history know how to treat you.
Exactly.
Okay. So let's go over here. This is a shorter graph. Progesterone. This breaks down into an alpha and a beta. So you see the beta and the alpha metabolites. And so sometimes when we're talking about metabolites, there are preferred pathways that are a safer or weaker version of the hormone that don't cause as many like imbalanced symptoms. And then other times it's just interesting.
Yeah.
So the progesterone, you actually favor this alpha metabolite. And so it's just good knowledge for you, because people that favor the alpha metabolite, if you were to use progesterone or like a wild yam complex, this metabolite crosses the blood-brain barrier. And so sometimes women who use these products find it's helpful for sleep and mood.
Okay.
So we're going to look at that in a second.
Okay.
And so also, just so you know, when I'm reading and analyzing these, there's going to be a sheet towards the middle, and you get a copy of all my love notes that come along with it. But these are my notes to myself of what we're going to do today. So see how Claire's already pulled a bunch of things in preparation for your visit. So those are precursors and enzymes and things that can push the pathways in one direction or another if it's in a non-preferred pathway and we want it to go down a preferred pathway. So these are things that we're going to test you on to tweak your protocol as a result of the data that's on here.
Sure.
So that was just information that was cool, because not everybody that takes their progesterone or wild yam at night finds that like relief with sleep.
Okay, because I do take a I'm switching back to the Serenity capsule.
Okay.
Because the one I'm taking now, the gummy, the Ollie. The Ollie Natural brand is not cutting
Got it.
Yeah.
And you can bring them in and we can test those as well.
Sure.
Okay, so now we're going to move over. So that was the progesterone metabolites. Now we're going to move over here to the androgens, which is your DHEA and testosterone. So your testosterone, women do make testosterone, so there's a healthy range, and having deficiency can cause other hormone imbalance symptoms as well. But as we approach, like, go through perimenopause and approach menopause, the ideal scene is that we get as much hormone balance as possible, because women who go into menopause with a healthy androgen level... I
have a question for you. My mom started menopause when she was 50.
Okay.
I just turned 49.
Okay.
June. And I'll be 50 next June.
Okay.
So...
Getting ready.
We both think that I'm going to follow that path.
It might be possible, and I'll show you in a minute, because all your estrogens were low. So that's kind of what naturally happens, is the ovaries, as we age, start producing less estrogen. And that gets the body into that perimenopause. But we never tell women when they start this, but perimenopause can last like 12 to 15 years. That's what we call like a transition. I know, it's not comforting.
No.
But if women going through that 12 to 15 year transition went into it with this test, with the knowledge, and able to tweak it and, balance it. So that's the ideal scene. As balanced as we can possibly get your hormones going into menopause will result in the least amount of negative symptoms during menopause and postmenopausal. So that's really my intention of doing this with you at this point.
Same, and I want the same. Yeah, I want the least net, because my mom, I have hot flashes now with perimenopause, but I haven't gotten the sweats yet.
Yeah, right.
And I don't want them.
I know. Who does? If you had a choice, you're like, I'll just forego that
keep
part
the hot
of it.
Flashes fine and everything like that, but then the sweats, I'm just, no.
Yeah, it'd be too disruptive.
Yes.
Well, and then these next little arrows that point kind of diagonal, this explains why it's so important to have adrenal health and androgen balance going into menopause, because eventually these are your 3 estrogens. And so eventually all of your estrogen is going to come from the aromatization of these androgens and less from your ovaries. And so if, remember when I told you this was your reserve level, which is already low. So if your precursors are already low, everything below it is going to be low as well.
Yeah, makes sense.
So we're going to feed the bucket from the top and have a trickle-down effect kind of a thing.
Okay.
But we can be very purposeful in directing it down which of these arrows it goes down.
Okay.
So another reason why we prefer this dried urine test or saliva testing for hormones instead of blood is because it breaks down the estrogen into your E1, your E2, and your E3.
Okay.
So estradiol is the strongest of all of them, and that is what's appropriate to be highest when we're in our reproductive and menstruating years. Okay. What they do with women who have low estrogen in the traditional world is they give them hormone replacement therapy.
Right. I don't want that.
That's why most people are here, because they are wanting to avoid that if possible. But hormone replacement therapy is always estradiol.
Okay.
And that's not appropriate for a menopausal woman to have the majority of her estrogen the same as when we're reproducing years, right? That's what doesn't make sense. And so a lot of times in our experiences, women might go on hormone replacement therapy and notice like a quick uptick in a lot of their symptoms. However, it kind of tapers off because it's not getting to the root of it. And what we find is, like, at least within 5 years, most women who go down that path find themselves dissatisfied and go off of it anyway, but then they still don't have a solution.
Yeah.
So then you have E1 and E3, and then you can see that E1 and E2 can convert back and forth, but estriol, which is a weaker one, can only go into this pathway. And so there's a blue arrow. So this is the 16-OH metabolite. And then the red arrow is the 4-OH, and then the green arrow is the 2-OH. And so all you really need to know is represented on this pie chart. And so the red is red because it's dangerous. So we don't want your estrogen metabolites going down the 4-OH pathway, because that causes genetic damage and cancer.
Yes.
It increases cancer risk. Yeah. So it'd be preferred if some went to the 16-OH and the majority went to the 2-OH.
Yeah. And then I have cancer in my family.
Right.
I have breast, pancreatic, and colon.
Okay. So anybody who has a known family history of an estrogen-sensitive cancer, I'm telling them we absolutely need to know what their, what their 4-OH pathway looks like here.
Thank you.
So this pie graph, green is the majority, so that's good. That's the safest pathway. And that's because, see how this makes a left-hand turn over here?
Yes.
So this has an extra, escape hatch.
Okay.
So that means if the majority of your estrogen gets metabolized down to this 2-OH pathway, then your body, through methylation with your COMT gene and your methylation pathways, can fully excrete it and break it down and get it out of the body, so excess won't build up. Okay. If it goes down this 4-OH, it just gets stuck.
Okay.
And then it causes DNA damage. And then if it goes down the 16-OH pathway, it's better than the 4-OH. But women who have issues with fibroids and cysts and excess bleeding, they don't want a lot of their hormones going down this pathway, because it's going to make those symptoms worse. Because this has a little bit of what we call proliferative effect. So it causes cells to grow.
Okay.
So your ranges were okay. So it shows you these are your percentages for the green, the red, and the blue, and these are expected. Okay. So the highest was in that safe 2-OH pathway. We didn't have over 11% going down the dangerous 4-OH pathway, so that was good. but you don't really have a whole lot going down the 16-OH pathway.
Mm-hmm.
So that's good to know because it's safe to give you things that would improve your estriol level, which is a weaker estrogen than the E2, and that could help some of your signs of estrogen deficiency as you go through menopause. But it's safer because it'll go down this pathway, and you still have room for error there because you are only 2% going down the 16-OH, and it's okay if 13 to 30% of your metabolites go through there. Okay. So that shows us where it's safe to supplement you.
Good.
But if somebody was already super high here, then even supporting estriol pathways wouldn't be healthy, wouldn't be okay. But you're okay.
Like your nails.
Thanks. And then the other thing that we can gain from this graph is over here. And so that was where we said the 2-OH pathway is the safest. And also this little extra excess like escape hatch. So your body does prefer that pathway, but then your methylation is poor, and so your body isn't able to move it all out as effectively as it possibly could. So we need methylation support. And so this little fan dial shows you your ability to methylate is super low.
What is methylate?
Methylation is partly happens in the liver, and it's how the body breaks down and detoxifies.
Okay.
So have you heard of NTHFR? It's a genetic mutation.
No, I haven't.
Okay. I put a little side note. If you ever want to do, once we go through this Dutch test, if you want to do the nutrigenomics test, it would be cool to see what your MTHFR and your COMT genes, if they have a mutation, because those are common SNPs, genetic SNPs or mutations that cause other deficiencies and issues with liver detoxification, B vitamin synthesis, but knowing the fibromyalgia, it could be because you're a bad methylator.
Yeah, and I also have, unfortunately, I know I have vitamin D deficiency, but I'm not sure about vitamin B, but I take a vitamin B.
Yeah.
Yeah, I take a vitamin B.
So we can even get more fine-tuned and specific about what types of B vitamins you need. And that was part of we're going to test you on a different cobalamin, adenosine cobalamin, and some B6 and B1 other cofactors. So it's not, I think B12 always gets all the attention because that's like the feel-good, gives you immediate energy.
Yeah.
So everybody wants to load up on B12, but you need them as a complex usually.
Right.
Yeah, you need them in good balance. And if you're a bad methylator, there are methylated B vitamins that are good for some people, but some people can't take the methyl version of B vitamins. So there's just a lot of different forms.
When you say methyl, is it like how you get like in the cough drops, that methyl?
Oh, no, that's menthol.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Sorry.
Methyl just means there's a sulfur group attached to it. So if you looked at the biochemistry, methylate means sulfur. Sulfur-based, sulfur-dependent.
Okay. Gotcha.
Yeah. Okay, so then the next graph goes into more detail about your cortisol. So again, you have the traditional blood work looking document, and then you have graphs and dials and pictures. You do take melatonin at night, right?
I do.
Okay, so I wouldn't be alarmed that this looks elevated because this is your waking melatonin level. And so if you're taking melatonin at night, it's not a problem. But you don't have to be worried about the excess because it's showing the first pass metabolism. So remember, this is a urine test.
Okay.
So it's showing what your body has been breaking down overnight.
Okay.
So that's just because you were supplementing why that one is elevated. And then this goes into more detail about how your DHEA, which I told you is your reserves, and how it gets broken down into cortisol and cortisone. So over here, cortisone, I wrote the word inactive. So it's inactive or bound. And then cortisol is the active, which your body can call on when it needs it. Okay. And this little fan dial just shows you that you tend to stay over here in the bound more than the free. And so we have to help the body be able to convert those. Okay. Because if your body needs it, it needs to be able to call on it and use it. Okay. And so in a minute when I muscle test you, some of our protocol over there had to do with forcing that cortisol metabolism. Okay. So just as an example, things that are like green tea, curcumin, holy basil, bitter melon, those are things that can help us push this pathway back into the free range instead of the stored range, so your body can more efficiently use your stress hormones.
doTERRA has holy basil.
Yeah. It's really common because there's so much great research behind it about how it affects these pathways.
Yes. What were the other ones?
They were green tea.
Yeah, I drink green tea because y'all told me that the black tea that I was drinking before I started here was not anti-inflammatory, but green tea is.
There you go.
I drink 2 cups in the morning, and that's it.
Yeah, and you'll know because if it's overstimulating, some people are too sensitive.
Yeah,
but that's fine. And then curcumin is also turmeric, so we can test you for turmeric products.
I take the turmeric forte here.
Okay, good.
Yeah,
and that'll help. And we'll just make sure you're getting enough of it.
Okay.
So we're gonna go over to the table now, and we're gonna test you on things that are going to help that DHEA, so things that'll build up your reserves, so you have something to call on. We're going to test you for things that are going to support the appropriate estrogen pathways for your age, not the estradiol.
Okay.
We're going to test you for methylators, so all these beautiful things help your body methylate. We're going to test you for what we call aromatase support, so that was using testosterone to push the bucket into your healthy estrogen levels because you were deficient in E1, 2, and 3.
Okay.
And then we're going to test you for those cortisol metabolizers, and then a special form of the B vitamin that I think you'll do better on. You'll be able to metabolize.
Have you heard of Adaptive?
Oh yeah, the Adaptive blend. I like that blend. Well, it's fun to be able to incorporate essential oils into all of this as well.
Yeah. It's the touch.
I like
and I put the actual oil itself on my bracelet that I wear, because I've got a ton of these that I wear.
Cool.
Coordinate my, outfit, but I put this on. I wear this like perfume.
Well, I like what you're doing because I always talk with my friends about like the tea, for example. Like if you're going to be drinking tea, make sure it's a form that's therapeutic for you. If you're going to be wearing jewelry, like make sure it's doing something positive for you. So it's just cool, like learning all these tips and tricks on a daily basis of things that you can do to help yourself, right?
I've been doing the essential oils for over 13 years.
Yeah.
I mean, as soon as I found out that I was positive for fibromyalgia, I reached out to a friend at my church that was doing doTERRA. I'm like, I've got fibromyalgia. Can you come over and give me a protocol? Yeah. She gave me a protocol, and I've stuck to it.
Yeah. Because if you know it's helping. Well, what's cool, and I think why you said you like to nerd out with the doTERRA, is they understand all these graphs and nerdy functional tests and labs. Like, it's all based on each specific pathway and the enzyme and the precursors. Like, they understand exactly how it affects your biochemistry. So that's why it's so therapeutic. And that's also why we warn people against using oils that aren't therapeutic grade or in the body, because they're not the same.
I made that mistake the very first time, because when I got the doTERRA, I was curious to compare it.
Right.
And I tried a store brand I did tea tree.
Yeah.
I got my doTERRA tea tree, and I tried the tea tree. Huge mistake. I immediately threw that store brand tea tree out.
I found essential oils it's Walmart, so what do you think you're going to get? But they literally say flammable on them, and people are thinking they're safe to put on the body, but they're like alcohol-based. Yeah. Americans spend $33 billion every single year on diets and weight loss products, and yet diets have a 95% failure rate. These statistics and my 18 plus years experience as a practicing doctor show me the real dangers of a cookie cutter approach to health, and that truthfully, diets don't work. This is why I created the 90-10 lifestyle, for the people like you and me, busy and not willing to settle for less when it comes to our health and wellness. This program isn't just about feeling fantastic and or losing weight for good. It's a roadmap to upgrading your body and mind from the inside out, while simultaneously suppressing the inflammation and suppressing the guilt that often comes with a high stress, high expectations, and high performance. The number one reason the 90-10 lifestyle is so effective and easy to maintain is that it gives you back your willpower instead of forcing it. As you can see, Christina gained a lot of insight into her complete hormonal story. Clinically, the information also helped me to fine-tune her treatment recommendations using an all-natural approach. In our practice, hormone replacement therapy is considered the last resort. We would much rather approach hormonal health from the perspective of helping the body produce its own hormones and get into balance, rather than taking a prescription medication which overrides the body's natural expression. If you would like some help with achieving hormonal balance, let's schedule a consultation to discuss. Or if you've already done your research and you are ready to order your test kit, I'm going to include both of those links for you in the show notes. Until next time, in Good Health Naturally, I'm Dr. Kristy, signing off. Your health and how you feel on a daily basis directly impact your mental, emotional, and spiritual health. We will help you reprogram your way of thinking and be on a plan that works for your body instead of against it. It is time to rewrite the false belief that health abnormalities are normal and that it just is what it is. You do not have to live with feeling less than 100%.
We invite you to take a serious look at how you feel on a day-to-day basis. Is what you're doing working? Do you want to learn how to live a more holistic life that's still enjoyable and fun? The 90-10 lifestyle can be the bridge from subpar results to the vibrant and abundant lifestyle that you've been looking for. So click the link by this video so you can get started today. We truly, truly know that this program can change your life. We'll see you on the inside.